Hi, this is Sean D'Souza, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation Podcast. This podcast isn't some magic trick about how to work less. Instead, it's about how to really enjoy the work that you do and to enjoy your vacation time. Hi, it's Sean, and you're listening to the 3-Month Vacation. Imagine you're sitting down late at night to get ready for your presentation the next day, and you find that your slide deck is empty. That's precisely what happened to me when I was conducting a workshop in California. This was many years ago. Now, usually I'm very thorough. I make sure that everything is in order at least 4 or 5 days before we board the flight to any destination. This time, however, I'd somehow put off what I needed to do. I was confident that I would have enough time when I got to the US. When preparing for workshops, I go through my slides anywhere between 10 or 15 times, and then I complete full run-throughs, at least thrice, on the day before. So how come the slide deck was empty? A psychotactics workshop is usually 3 days or more, and the slides for day one were just as they needed to be. But who looks for day 2 slides on day 1? Not me, at least. Which brings us right to the evening of the first day. So there I am sitting down to prepare myself for day 2, and that's when I realize that many of the slides had incomplete information. Procrastination doesn't have a good rap, and rightly so. Just because we push something out into the future doesn't mean that it's gone away. In fact, there's a good chance that the unfinished task is a mega energy drainer. Let's say I have to go for a medical checkup. I can see that white slip right in front of me, and it bugs me. If you need to finish writing that chapter in your book, you spend enormous amounts of energy just pushing that task into the future. Every time you do it, you feel that energy seeping out of you because it takes so much power to just push that stuff away, to just keep it away and say, oh, I'll come back to it. It takes all of that energy. Procrastination has a bad reputation, and there's a reason behind it. However, there are times when procrastination can be good for you. In this series, we will cover 3 points. The first point being how deadline-based procrastination helps you formulate better thoughts. The second is how procrastination can help you deal with the email deluge. And finally, why procrastination can be good for energy levels and when it's bad. We'll start at the top, shall we? We'll look at how deadline-based procrastination helps you formulate better thoughts. Before we start this story, apologies if I'm going to pronounce this name wrong because it depends on a click language and I obviously don't know how to speak that language. So let's start the story. In 1966, there was a study on the Huanasi Bushmen. These Bushmen wander around the borderlands between Namibia and Botswana. It found that the Bushmen only worked 17 hours a week on average to find their food. And there are always domestic chores, so that took another 19 hours a week. In all, they spent 36 hours a week, and that was it. Our so-called civilized week is a lot longer. Even back in 1966, a comparable week in the United States was roughly double. 40 hours were spent at work and about 36 on average on domestic labor. Today, adults employed full-time in the US report working an average of between 47 to 50 hours per week. That is more than a whole working day as compared with 1966. Now, all of this extra work means one thing. The working brain of the Huhuanasi and the busy business owner in Beijing is quite similar. But the demands of energy, the distractions and travel have made procrastination an imposing part of our lives. Even if we were just to go back to my father's time, there's a huge change. My father ran a business, a secretarial college, and while he put in a long workday from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., he didn't have Facebook, he didn't have a mobile phone. Once he got on his train at night, he'd be eating roasted peanuts and nodding off as he made his way back home. In comparison, we have to battle all sorts of crazy stuff just to get through the day. So our energy levels go down, 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 down. Our energy levels deplete, and then our procrastination levels skyrocket. Even so, procrastination can be a great ally when it comes to formulating thoughts. Take this article for instance. I write most of my articles within 5000 BC right in the forum on forum software, which means every member of 5000 BC can see the progress of the article. This article, for example, started on the 19th of September. It was just an announcement of the article. By the 20th, I'd only managed to write 3 topics, as in the topics that I was going to cover. Those 3 things that we announced right at the start of this podcast. As the 21st made its way towards yet another sunset, 4 paragraphs were in place. And then there was a to be continued added to the unfinished piece. If you look at this form of article writing, you can either consider it to be procrastination or progress. I think of it as procrastination, and I think it's good. I think it's good when you're trying to maximize your creativity. According to Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, there are 5 steps to getting to a finish point, kind of a sort of finish point really. And they are Step 1, preparation. Step 2, incubation. Step 3, insight. Step 4, evaluation. And Step 5, elaboration. So that's preparation, incubation, insight, evaluation, elaboration. When you and I look at that list, there are 5 whole levels of procrastination. If you wanted to write an article, you wanted to compose some music, or even put that plant that you bought last week, to put that plant in the ground, it requires 5 chunky steps. Trying to rush a project of some complexity through those stages is likely to be counterproductive. Even so, every stage of the procrastination process needs to be long enough, but not so long that you completely forget about it. The bigger the project, the more likely you are to push it to the back burner. And then it just lies there in a corner, unfinished. Properly managed procrastination seems paradoxical, doesn't it? Procrastination by its very nature is putting off something and putting off something for the future because you don't want to deal with it right now. Managed procrastination, however, is where you do a tiny bit, then you put it off for the rest of the while, and then you may start off the task in the morning and then continue the task in the day or next day. But essentially what you're doing is you're hitting a pause button until the next time. When you're seemingly stuck on the pause button, your brain will come up with different angles to solve the problem. If you're writing an article, you will have different examples, possibly even a different way of expressing yourself. Take, for instance, this presentation that I'm doing in Australia the next week. I've been working on this for close to a month. Does it take me a month to put together the slides? No, it doesn't. But what it's doing is enabling me to get the examples, formulate my thoughts, sharpen them a bit, remove a bunch of slides. There were some arrogant slides there. We got rid of them. There were some slides at the end that were too pushy. got rid of them. I read a couple of books, part of a couple of books while I was doing this presentation, and those books helped me change the way I was going to present those slides. Writing an article might not be a big deal for one person, but for you, it might be a lot of sweat, it might be a lot of tears, and a bit of beer too. Professionals tend to have some kind of system that will take them through preparation, incubation, and insight. The job gets done as a first draft, and then you have to come back to evaluation and elaboration. The more we find ourselves working through these steps, the greater the procrastination. However, it's a managed form. Instead of simply putting things off, we're doing it systematically. Well, somewhat systematically, but we're going through those 5 steps. Distraction has a bad name, and rightly so. When we're off on a tangent, we feel bad because we should be working on our project. Unlike the Bushmen, we have too much to cope with, and it seems to rush towards us all at once. When you accept that distraction is part of your day-to-day life, procrastination becomes even more vital. You realize that once you're done with a pre-designated chunk of work, you're going to reward yourself with some distraction. Yes, you're going to reward yourself with some distraction so that your brain doesn't slip into that downward spiral. Hours later, or even a few days later, you're fresh, you're filled with a range of ideas and examples that you no doubt jotted down. That very same project now has a different energy, it has a raw energy. That distraction, unfortunate as it may seem, is not quite so ugly if you plan for it in advance. And here's a very practical example. As you know, the Psychotactics article writing course is one of the toughest writing courses in the world. Now, in previous versions of the course, I'd get clients to write an article every day. Then, after 10 years of doing this, someone mentioned in 2016 that she was spending 3 to 4 hours finishing the article every night. And I was appalled at the idea, because in my mind, clients should be taking about 60 to 90 minutes at best. That's all you need to write an article. And if you spend 3 to 4 hours every night, you're just going to get exhausted. The material isn't going to get 300% better. It's often a lot worse if you spend so much time, because you're completely frazzled by the end of it. And then, of course, there's the article the next day, and the next day, and the next day. So I went about re-engineering the entire article writing course. And in version 2 of the article writing course, the clients only write the topics on Monday. On Tuesday, they outline the topics. On Wednesday, they chip away at the article using the system of procrastination. So instead of writing 5 articles a week, they may end up with just 1 or 2. However, those articles are of a higher quality, and the student isn't dreading the following week as much. Make no mistake, learning a new skill or working on a project, it has lots of twists and turns. It's never going to be easy. Slaving yourself through that whole process is a silly strategy. Going through several stages makes it so much more productive. More valuable content is created. And eventually, you finish projects. From a project point of view, procrastination is wonderful. However, there are other applications for managed procrastination. I use it for my email too. How? Let's find out. On Sunday nights, I sit down to go through my email. That way, when I wake up on Monday, I expect my inbox to be empty or at least sparse. I should be so lucky. No matter how much you and I deal with email, there's always more coming through. And easily the biggest problem with email is that it drains you. And if you're doubtful about this, start up a new email account and look at the vast blankness of that account. Not a single email sits in your inbox. That new account stays new and shiny. And if you sneak back later, maybe 20 minutes later, there's still nothing to be seen. But what if you could do that for your current inbox? What if you could keep it neat and tidy? Well, you can, and it's all a matter of managed procrastination. Email software has got very smart over the years, and some of it is free and some of it requires a subscription of some kind. What most modern email software allows you to do is to push email away until it's needed. Maybe someone is requesting an article. Maybe I won't be able to tackle it until next week. If it's just something like Gmail, then it's going to sit in the inbox because it needs to be done, and well, you can't archive it and you can't let it go and you can't delete it. And so it's going to sit there in the inbox. Or I may put it in a folder, and I'm hopeless with folders. However, there is email software and you don't have to do this. Modern email software allows you to push it away. In other words, procrastination comes to the rescue. On any given day, I'll deal with the urgent emails right away. Everything else gets pushed for later, either later today, which is about 3 hours after reading it, or for the evening, or for the weekend, or for next week, or next month, or even a specific date and time, like, say, Friday, 29 September at 3:31 p.m. No matter how important you are as a person, most of your email can be allocated to another time zone. And this is when you're more likely to be able to tackle what needs to be done. For instance, some emails that require more effort, I will deal with right away. Or I might say, I'm not feeling great right now. I'll just push it until later. It's hard to say which ones you should keep and which you should push away. You defer your email depending on your workload. You're depending on your mood. That's what you do. But one thing is clear. If you've ever had an inbox with 0 emails or just a couple of emails, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You feel like a burden has been lifted off your shoulders. You feel free. You feel excited. Okay, I'll stop. Yet, all of this procrastination, managed as it is, may seem like you're fooling yourself. We all put reminders, we put alarms, and we're supposed to stay on task, but we swipe away that reminder. Won't that email come back and just be an excuse to swipe it away for some time in the future? It's true. Emails keep coming back. And you think, well, I'll get to that. And then you swipe it away for some time in the future. And I had quite a few emails that kept coming back. At first, I'd send them away for a week and say, well, they're not urgent. But then I started pushing them away for a month. And then they showed up a month later. And then they would show up in January, and February, March, and April, May. And then I decided I was never going to act on them. So you archive them. Maybe someday you will look at it, and you can find it if you find it. But if you're finding this email coming back repeatedly, then you might as well get rid of it or archive it because, you don't need it right now. At least as of now, email is just part of our life. We don't expect to get less email. We're always going to get more. And it sucks our energy to keep scanning emails in our box, often opening some emails that we've already read. It's so much better to clear up the box so that the emails appear later or they appear when they're needed in the future. To get this job, I use Boomerang for Gmail, which is a paid service. It costs about $5 a month. On the Mac, you also have Spark, which is excellent. It does an absolutely stunning job. And strangely, it's free. I don't know much about the PC because I walked away from PCs in 2008. But Boomerang works with Outlook, and so I think it should be PC friendly. It also works with your iPhone. They just released that probably 3 or 4 days ago. And I think it's going to be working with Android as well. So Boomerang for Gmail works really well, and then there will be other options. All email isn't the same. Some needs to be dealt with right away. Some of it can do with managed procrastination. So use the procrastination. You'll find that inbox to be so empty, and believe me, you'll start to feel relaxed. You get addicted to the inbox, that empty inbox. Just empty space. Nothing. Or maybe just 1 or 2 emails. Pretty cool, isn't it? Now this takes us to the third part, and probably the biggest reason why procrastination helps. And we're going to talk about energy. If you head to Uluru, also known as Ayers Rock, your first experience as you leave the airport is an invasion of bushflies. Within seconds, they're swarming all over your face, and in some misguided effort, you try to get rid of them. You can do whatever you like, but the flies keep coming. And very quickly, you have the sense of losing the battle. Your work can somehow seem like bushflies at times. You try swatting it away, but it keeps coming back with gusto. And as you take on the day, your energy keeps going downward. And that's how our brains function. We start off with high efficiency, and then we start to get slower, we start making more mistakes, we get more distracted. And this is why you need to procrastinate a bit. So here's what I do. I try and take as many breaks, so that's the kind of postponement. So you're doing this job, you should be continuing to focus on it, but no, I'm taking breaks. Every 30 minutes I'm taking a break. I'm going back to the house, so the office is adjoining the house, and I'll go back to the house and I'll do something there. And then I'll come back after a little while, and then I'll continue working, then go back to the house and come back. And then I'll finish a reasonable chunk of work, and then I'll go home again and I'll cook lunch. And all these breaks, they may seem like, hey, you're derailing the project, but it's actually time well wasted. After about 30 minutes, no matter what you're doing, and especially if it is a task that's difficult, your brain starts to get very tired. And the best thing you can do is just leave whatever you're doing and go out there. Go out and take a little walk for 5 minutes, or just lie on the floor doing the semi-supine. Whatever it is you do, you have to take that break. That's a form of procrastination. Going from one task to another is seen as focus, and most of us revere this concept of focus. But focus doesn't mean that you have to start and finish everything in one go. A lot of activities, both work-related and non-work-related, could all do with a break in activity. And I've covered this in previous podcasts, but you can go from a high-level activity to a low-level activity. So say you're writing an article and that's taking up a lot of your energy. Well, write part of that article, then go and check your email. Or then go and do something that is definitely a low-level activity. And yes, it's possible to even go on Facebook and distract yourself in an organized fashion. I know, Facebook is not an organized distraction, but still, what you need to do is make sure that you get those breaks. And breaks are really a form of procrastination. High energy and low energy tasks, they're a form of procrastination. So this part of the podcast is not very long, but what it's advocating is breaks. And breaks might seem like a form of procrastination. You have to finish everything, you have to focus on something, and instead you're going to take a break. But it's very good for you. It's very good for the project. It helps you think. It helps you come back a little fresher. And that enables you to finish your task a lot quicker. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. So what did we cover? We covered 3 things. The first is how deadline-based procrastination helps you to formulate better thoughts. Because what just seems like a project is preparation, incubation, insight, evaluation, elaboration. And this is what the Hungarian psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi talks about. each of those sections, they require a different set of thoughts and evaluation, and eventually you get to that endpoint. If it's a simple task, you'll get to it very quickly. If it's a more complex task, like you're writing a book or an article or a presentation, now you have to go through all of those stages. So it formulates better thoughts. The second thing it helps you do is email. Try the empty inbox. A lot of people just keep that inbox full of stuff. And you don't need that, because every time you look at that, it drains your energy. Even looking at it, forget about reading it, even looking at your inbox full of stuff, it drains your energy. Try getting rid of all of those emails and see how wonderful, how liberating an inbox seems. Now there's software. There's been software for quite a while. Use the software. Some of it might cost $5 a month. Some of it might be free. You have to check it out for your own system, whether it's a PC. We know on the Mac it exists, so on the PC it exists as well. Go for it, find it, use it. And the third thing is just the breaks that you take in between. Lying down on the floor or just going somewhere outside the office, going away from your desk. It might seem like a total waste of time. It's not a waste of time. It allows your brain to rebound, and it allows your brain to refocus. And the second thing that it does is that it allows you to have a natural movement from high energy to low energy tasks. And that brings us to the end of this podcast. So let's find out what's happening in Psychotactics land. It's only October, but we already have a workshop in place in April. You probably heard about it. It's in Singapore. It's on the 12th, 13th, and 14th. And then in Brussels. And this is on the 18th, 19th, and 20th. Our workshops are totally different. They're a lot of fun. And you specifically walk out with a skill. Most workshops are information. Well, they call them workshops, but they're mostly seminars. It's a one-way street. Someone goes blah, 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 blah. You make a lot of notes. You go back. Hard to implement all that stuff. Our workshops have this one-is-to-one system. I speak for one part of the time. You work for one part of the time, and then we discuss it. But this workshop goes a little further than that as well. We have 2 days where you're going to work on learning how to craft a sales page. And on the third day, you work on your sales page, and then it gets audited. So you're going back with a sales page and the knowledge to create a sales page. Now, if you have a product or a service and you have a workshop or something that you're planning in the future, you're going to need a sales page. And there are lots of courses there, and they're probably cheaper, but the experience of physically coming to a workshop, despite all that expense, is far greater. I can assure you that sometimes just the travel back and forth, that makes a world of a difference. And in today's world, we sit behind computers and we think we can learn this stuff. And you know that isn't entirely true. Physically being in a workshop, meeting other people. This is not about networking and meeting fancy people, but instead it's about meeting real people, real business owners, just like you. Most business owners tend to keep in touch after the workshop, unlike other places where you just get the email addresses and then no one communicates. Well, what happens is they're usually members of 5000 BC. So if you're not already a member of 5000 BC, you will eventually become a member of 5000 BC. And you will be communicating with the rest of them. And this is the beauty of a Psychotactics workshop. It's a community-driven workshop, and you learn from it, and you continue to learn from it in the weeks and months and the years ahead, and you keep in touch. And, of course, there is a system of skill, not just information. So come to the workshop or join us in 5000 BC, and we'll see you soon. That's me, Sean. This is saying bye for now. Bye-bye.